Hello friends, my name is Emile, and welcome back to another edition of Forza Top Gear Laps. Today we are taking a look at movie cars, aka cars off the silver screen. We begin with the 1964 Aston Martin DB5, 325 horsepower, 288 foot-pound torque, 3,230 pounds of weight. This one, pretty simple of course, it is from the James Bond movies, first featured in Goldfinger, I believe it was, and since then it's cropped up in various other films in the James Bond franchise. Of course, this is the first Aston Martin James Bond used, and it's the car which basically kick-started that slightly awful thing where everyone just looks at Aston Martin to go, I know that car from James Bond. Not really a fan of that, but other than that, I am a fan of Aston Martin, or at least was not really too keen on their most recent cars. But that's besides the point. The DB5 is a rather cool car, and also a very, very expensive cars these days. I believe these are going for way over £1 million now. It's ridiculous. Anyways, as far as this DB5 goes to drive, it is surprisingly alright. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, when you sort of look at these 1960s GT cars, they've never particularly driven well around this course. They're usually fairly quick, but have horrific handling. This one actually doesn't handle too terribly. It's not great, I wouldn't even call it particularly good, but it is alright. It's, you know, it is competent through the corners. It will get through the corners without having a massive smash. It doesn't lean quite as much as you'd expect, it doesn't have quite as much diff lock as you'd expect, and on the plus side, it is a relatively quick car as well, which is always a benefit. Next up, 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. 425 horsepower, 490 foot-pound torque, 3,800 pounds of weight. This car is the highest torque vehicle here today, and it is tied for the heaviest vehicle here today. This particular car comes from the 1971 film Vanishing Point. Can't remember quite what it is in Vanishing Point. I've never actually seen Vanishing Point. Truth exposed there, but nevertheless, this is a car from the film, and yeah, I kind of wanted something a little bit different from the Dodge that everyone else assumes whenever you say movie car, although this isn't really a TV car episode, but that's beside the point. Anyways, this Challenger, not a huge fan of the Challenger. I've always been much more of a fan of the Charger series of cars, whether it be, you know, in the classic sense, and even in today's sense. You know, I do prefer the 4-door Charger over the 2-door Challenger, but the Challenger is a pretty cool car nonetheless. As far as this one goes to drive, the best way to describe it is pretty simple. It is a typical muscle car. Of course, it features a Hemi engine, which quite a lot of the muscle cars do in this game. Statistically, if I remember correctly, this thing is extremely similar to the Plymouth GTX that we've already had go around the track, and this thing is identical to the Plymouth Countach as well. So, yeah, that is a little thing about the Challenger, but yeah, it's just a typical muscle car to drive, not particularly great, very quick, but handling is set to no in that car. Next up, 1971 Ford Mustang Mach 1, 376 horsepower, 450 foot-pound torque, 3,711 pounds of weight. This one coming courtesy of the 1974 film Gone in 60 Seconds, and I will preface this quickly by saying this isn't the exact car that was in that film. You do see this quite a bit in this episode just because there's different model years and stuff involved. So this is the 1971. The one in the film, I believe it's either a 73 or a 74. They do have very slight differences in terms of styling, but the paint job's on it, so you can barely tell other than the hood, because the hood on the 73, 74 is smooth and this one's got vents on it and stuff. Anyways, the Mustang Mach 1. This is the first time the Mustang Mach 1 has actually ever taken on the Top Gear Laps course, which is weird because this has been in pretty much every single Forza game not to date, because I don't think it was in the first couple, but it's certainly been in the game since Forza 4. But yeah, we've just never had it go around the Top Gear track, and that's a bit of a shame, because after driving it today, this is one of the best driving muscle cars in the game. It is not one of the quickest, you know, 376 horsepower, that's down on the Challenger in terms of the torque figure. But in terms of the handling, again, like the DB5, I wouldn't call it great by any stretch of the imagination, but when you compare it to the other cars in its class, it is actually a really nice driving muscle car. Which I guess I was kind of expecting from the Mach 1 just because it is a little bit less power. But yeah, I was surprised by the Mach 1, and you know, if you want to be surprised, give it a go. Next up, 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, 201 horsepower, 325 foot-pound torque, 3,800 pounds of weight. This is the least powerful car here today, and it is the heaviest car here today, tied of course with the Challenger. This one coming courtesy of the 1977 film Smokey and the Bandit, one of my personal favourites. I love Smokey and the Bandit, and I love this particular generation of the Pontiac Firebird. It is my favourite gen of the Firebird. It just has that classic style about it, and I really like this generation of the Firebird. Of course, I actually quite like the Pontiac Firebird in general. If I do dare say so myself, I actually prefer it to Corvettes, which, I mean, these cars never really rivaled each other because GM really didn't let the Firebird rival the Corvette, but nevertheless, they are still absolutely fantastic looking things, certainly. As far as this one goes to drive, it is also a fantastic driving car. I will point out, you definitely can feel the weight in this thing. This thing is way too heavy. But if you were to stick some weight reduction in it, this would be a fantastic driving car, and it's already pretty great as it is. It really is fantastic. It's just glued to the road. There's not really much body roll in it or anything like that. Like I said, genuinely, if you stripped out the weight of this thing, this would be a really good handling car. Really good car for maybe like an autocross build or something, if you wanted to build something a little bit different. This would definitely be a car to look at. Yeah, the Firebird, other than its sort of underpoweredness and its overweightness, fantastic driving car. Maybe the best driving car here today? Maybe. Next up, 1958 Plymouth Fury, 305 horsepower, 370 foot-pound torque, 3,595 pounds of weight. And this one coming courtesy of the 1981 film Christine, which features a sentient version of this car that goes around trying to kill people. And I guess that's kind of accurate because the Fury does actually look kind of evil when you do look at it. It's a little bit strange. It's like a sort of Bel Air, but a little bit more flared. The Plymouth Fury, don't know a whole lot about this car, not quite sure what its purpose was in life. It's a cool looking car. It looks like pretty much every other 1950s American car, just with a little bit more flair to it. Yeah, I do prefer the Bel Air. I don't know if they competed, but the Bel Air looks better in my opinion. This car drives better than the Bel Air though, that is for certain, and I haven't even driven the Bel Air around this course ever actually. I really should get on that. Yeah, this this Fury is surprising. Very surprising. I was blown away by actually how decent this thing is to drive. Possibly the most surprising car here today. It is surprisingly okay through the corners. It is, yeah, just a decent driving car, which I was not expecting. It's also very quick. The Bel Air is not quick. This is quick, and it also has a 3-speed transmission, which is better than 2-speed from the Bel Air. Yeah, I really like driving the Plymouth Fury actually. It was a... yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, but genuinely, it is a quite nice car to drive. Next up, 1988 Lamborghini Countach LP 5000, 455 horsepower, 369 foot-pound torque, 3,284 pounds of weight. This is the most powerful car here today, and it comes courtesy of the 1981 film Cannonball Run, where this car was driven by some of the main characters, and it also had a spoiler on the front end of it. Again, similar to the Mustang Mach 1, the version in the film, of course, would have been in 1981, this is in 1988, yada yada yada. It's a Countach, they basically all look the same. Yeah, not a huge fan of the Lamborghini Countach, gotta be honest. This might be my least favourite of sort of the big V12 Lambos, but it's still a cool car, and it is very 80s, even though it was introduced in like 1974. As far as this one goes to drive, I can't believe I'm going to say this, almost excellent. I wasn't quite as blown away by it as I was for the Fury, because I thought the Fury would have been a mess, but this thing is excellent to drive, almost excellent in fact. Yeah, it's just a really good handling, solid car, which I was not expecting from the Countach at all. You know, you would sort of hear about these big, meaty Lambos, and they sort of have all these issues with handling and so on and so forth. This one, it's a phenomenal handling car. It's very strange, but it is excellent to drive. Next up, the 1993 Porsche 911 Turbo S, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, Lichbau. 381 horsepower, 347 foot-pound torque, 2,844 pounds of weight. This one coming courtesy of the 1995 film Bad Boys, another one of my favourites. I love Bad Boys, especially the second one, but the first one is pretty decent too. Of course, the main characters drive around in a Porsche 911. I'm not sure if this is the exact generation of 911. I don't remember. I know it was black. I knew it looked like this one. I can't remember if it's a 964 or 993 for the life of me. It's also not a Liebau. That means lightweight in German. I don't know why I keep trying to pronounce it. I'm probably butchering it, but yeah, never mind. Anyways, as far as this car goes to drive, it is a very good car to drive. This is sort of when 911s, they started figuring out the handling quirks of them. There is quite a lot of rear-end bias in this car. You can definitely feel the fact that the engine is in the rear. There is a lot of weight over the rear, and it does try to chuck that weight out occasionally, but if you can keep that controlled, you are treated to no front-end lift, which is weird because it's a 911. Most of them do have front-end lift. For whatever reason, this one doesn't. The GT2 did. This doesn't. So, there you go, a little bit of a weirdness for you. Yeah, this car's actually very, very good to drive. And finally today, the 2009 Mini Cooper JCW, 208 horsepower, 192 foot-pound torque, 2,701 pounds of weight. This is the least torquey car here today, and it is the lightest car here today. This one coming courtesy of the 2003 film, The Italian Job. Of course, that car was a 2003, that was a first-gen Mini Cooper, this is a second-gen Mini Cooper, but it's the closest we've got, and also, I couldn't decide whether to make it red, white or blue because that's the colours of the three minis in the film, so I went with all three and we've ended up with this weird French flag thing, which is ironic when you consider the Mini Cooper's powered by a French engine. Anyways, yeah, not a fan of the modern Mini Coopers. I've spoken about this quite a few times. The first gen is sort of becoming acceptable for me now, but I don't think this one ever will be, and the newest gen's an abomination, and also I have a slight funny feeling that it's going to end up in the next Forza DLC, and god, I hope it doesn't. Anyways, as far as this one goes to drive, it's fine. It's better than I was expecting. Most of these sort of hot super minis are okay. They usually have a lot of differential spin. This one does have a lot of that as well. But in terms of its actual handling characteristics, this one is surprisingly grippy. It is quick as well, I will say, 208 horsepower. When you compare it to something like the Firebird and stuff like that I've driven for most of today, it's kind of nice driving something that's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for, civilized maybe? Yeah, it is a decent enough car as it is. Anyways, on to the leaderboard, and the Porsche 911 Turbo S Liebau is the fastest car today, going to 42nd place with 119.004. It is over a second quicker than the 911 GT2 993, which is insane. I don't quite know if the Turbo S was quicker than that car, because they're different generations, but even still, strange. Next up in 57th place, the Lamborghini Countach LP5000 with a 120.515, a very good time in fact. Sticks it in between an Audi RS6 Avant and an Alfa Romeo 8C Competizione. It is also quicker than a BMW M6, Corvette Z06, yeah, good time from the Countach, as it deserves it because it's a great handling car. In 109th place, the Mini Cooper JCW with 128.414, surprisingly good. Beats out an Alfa Romeo Giulietta and an Acura Integra Type R, only slightly slower than a Mazda RX-8. Well, I say slightly, there's quite a bit of time in there, but we need to pump up that edge of the leaderboard. In 119th place, we find the Dodge Challenger RT with 129.471, a little bit off of the Plymouth GTX as you'd expect, but it is quicker than a Fox body Mustang. The Mustang Mach 1 goes in 122nd place with a 129.837, only slightly slower than a Firebird Trans Am. It is quicker than Civic Type R and a 911 Carrera RS. That Mach 1, again, it doesn't quite have the speed of the other muscle cars, but in terms of handling, it is golden. Moving down the board some more, we find the Aston Martin DB5 in 128th place with a 130.773, goes in between a Lotus 11 and an AMC Rebel the Machine. In 130th place, we find the Plymouth Fury with a 130.844. It's quicker than a Honda Prelude and a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Sure. It's also quicker than the Porsche 550 Spider, which would have been a race car of its generation, which, yeah, strange, sure. The Plymouth Fury may indeed be possessed. And finally today, in 148th place, it's the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, a 135.125, slots in between the Jaguar XK120 and a Nissan 240SX, so it's quicker than the 240SX, I'll take that. Yeah, it was never going to be a quick car, but my god, I just love the way it handles, and it's a good looker, and what more do you need in life, really? Anyways, that is it for this edition of Forza Top Gear Laps. I do hope you've enjoyed. As always, make sure to leave your requests for cars and themes down below in the comments section. I don't actually know what's going to be next week, but whatever it is, join me for it. Until then, thanks for watching, and farewell.
Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking. Are we gonna do what they say can't be done? We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. I'm east now, just watch old bandit run. Keep your foot hard on the pedal, son, never mind them brakes.